I was picking up dead chickens at chicken houses in Delaware. I was doing everything that needed to be done to make sure that the lights stayed on. And I was doing so much, Nate. I was like, into everything. I was the chief everything officer. It was the CEO, chief everything officer.
We used to think if someone raised their hand, then that was good. It's like, oh, someone raised their hand. They want to be a leader. Let's plug them in. But we quickly learned that you can want something, but maybe not have the skill set yet, right? When we first started off, I remember we shared our core values and we're like, everybody's going to love them. And a few months later, we're like, all right, if anybody can name our core values, we'll give you, I don't know, $50. Nobody could name our core values.
I've learned when it comes to people, if you want to speed up, you have to slow down first. You have to slow down. And for the next day, for today, in this moment right now, it's going to be slower, maybe for the next week, for the next month. But you have to slow down in order to transform that into fast.
Hello and welcome to IDD Leader, where each week I help you kick staff turnover to the curb and build the kind of workplace that attracts and retains the best people in human services. I'm your host, Nate Beers. Let's dive in. Listen, I'm not assuming this is true at your organization, but at most of the organizations that I am talking with, there's this pattern where higher level leaders get pulled into problems from down below, and things kind of escalate up the pipeline on a far too often basis. We're going to talk about that today. In fact, my guests are Wes and Kristy Mast, and as wild as this is, they know very little about human services, but what they know a whole lot about is developing people. You see, they're high school sweethearts, and I think it's 15 years ago, he started a home inspection business. In fact, at that time, Wes was picking up dead chickens at chicken houses just to keep the lights on early on in the business. But they've grown that from him being essentially an owner-operator into a multi-state company. And largely they've done that by building a system that grows leaders, not just promoting their best performer, but actually growing leaders. And a lot of organizations struggle with not only the problems coming up the pipeline, but then how do we develop people who develop people? That's a whole next level stuff. And that's why I'm so pumped to share this episode with you. I don't want to give too much away, but I do want you to be listening they have a very specific way that they can tell when someone's ready for leadership before they promote them. They have a framework for hard conversations that's not really aggressive. It's also not being a pushover. And I love their 4-stage model for the emotional roller coaster that every new leader goes through. So without further ado, enjoy this. It's part 1 of 2. Let's go. So one of the biggest frustrations I hear from executive leaders is that they feel like they're pulled in a million directions all at once, and often that they're pulled into problems that could have been handled at a lower level. This could be employee issues or coaching conversations, interpersonal conflict, you name it. And I could be wrong on this, but I'm guessing that at some point your business may have looked a lot more like that. But today you've built a company where leaders throughout the organizations own those responsibilities. And I'm curious, from your standpoint, what's the biggest mindset shift leaders have to make if they want to stop being the bottleneck?
I laugh because I feel like shortly after starting our business and growing our team, I realized that not everybody has the skill of problem solving. Problem solving is something that has come more naturally to me. I think it comes more naturally to a lot of leaders. And that's why they're in the position that they're in. But then you kind of assume that everybody has that same skill set and that same muscle. And then you're like, okay, not everybody has exercised that muscle maybe as much as I have, or don't have that same skill set or gifting. And so as a leader, I had to learn really quickly that I had to create a lot of systems to support my team in making a lot of those decisions. So sometimes we undervalue our natural giftings and skill sets that we bring, and we assume others have it. And problem solving was one of them for us. And I think as leaders, when we see problems or we see things that are coming to us, the first thing that we need to ask ourselves, is there a system that I can put in place to help support my team in being able to address whatever this was. So a prime example, I remember our team, they could go through the hiring steps, right? Very checklist type of things. But then if there were performance issues, how long do we wait? When do we make that decision? It gets gray. And so I had to create a system that really outlined for them like what that looks like, my thought process, how I handle it. And then they are great at executing on that. Or here's some questions to ask yourself as you're problems, solving which way to go. But I assumed in the very beginning that everybody could problem solve and they enjoyed problem solving and they enjoyed inventing because those are two things that I enjoy doing. And that's often not the case, right? But that's where as leaders, we have to identify that and then give them the tools to be able to handle that on their own. But if we just allow it, then you're just constantly going to be able to putting out fires. So you kind of have to get to the root cause of that.
And I think gotten a lot better at getting curious over the years. So whenever a problem or an issue or opportunity comes up to Kristy or I think it's our job as leaders to ask a lot of really good questions. And I think great leaders ask great questions. And I think too often we think in the moment and we want to get this problem solved and move on to the next thing. But I've learned when it comes to people, if you want to speed up, you have to slow down first. You have to slow down. And for the next day, for today, in this moment right now, it's going to be slower, maybe for the next week, for the next month. But you have to slow down in order to transform that into fast. When it comes to people, slow turns into fast if we ask the right questions, if we empower them and we coach them. Because we take for granted sometimes everything that's in our head, all the things that we've learned. We just think somehow when we hire somebody and put them in leadership, all that translates. But we're discounting our own experience and what we've went through and what we know about the business. And we just put it on our leaders like, okay, go forth and act the same as me. And that's not going to happen. One, you don't want them to act just like you, because then you're just going to have a bunch of same strengths and weaknesses throughout the organization. But slowing down and asking the questions, what would you do? How would you handle this? What do you see as a upside or a downside of this situation? All those are questions that are to get them thinking and help remove you out of the bottleneck, because all the bottlenecks are at the top. So if we keep giving the answers, all we're doing is remaining in the bottleneck. We have to ask better questions. We have to think of like how can I stop this coming back to me? And it's asking questions of ourselves and it's asking questions of our team of like how can we not make this an issue again? How can we stop crazy from coming inside of our company again? How can we not hire that type of person again? So all those things come to mind when you have that question of how do I stop things from coming to us. It's having systems, having the right questions around it.
Yeah, no, those are a lot of insight. I'm actually excited. I think we're going to probably go deeper on some of those things that you both just shared, whether it's the systems thinking or the getting curious. What you said about slowing down to speed up, all of it. That was a lot of insights there. I want to take a step back and kind of introduce you, or have you introduce yourselves. You guys started and you run a home inspection business, that's very outside of the scope of IDD providers, who are the listeners primarily of this show. But you're passionate about developing people, and that's really why I brought you on. And so, why don't you just share for a little bit about your journey? How did you go from starting a home inspection business to then it's grown into this multi-state company? And there are some listeners are already at large established, organizations that have been around 100 years, but there's others that are kind of in startups or recently, they're a 10-year-old organization that's been growing and starting to scale. So some listeners will probably relate directly to that, but give us a little bit of their backstory.
Yeah, I would say it started, I was in finance and I was working through some things in my own journey. And essentially I was like, this isn't a good fit for me anymore. I want to get out of this. And Kristy's dad had started a home inspection business after the '08 crash. So I was like, hey, what do you think if I worked with you in this and help you grow, and I can help with the books? And long story short with that, like I started working with him. He wanted to make a change. So we bought him out. And at the time, we were growing something. It was just me. How big can this get? And we started to learn, okay, like I need to have some duplication here so that if something happens to me, the business keeps going. That's kind of where the growth started of wanting to have growth. And it was like, maybe we'll have two people. And then we started growing and so we thought, okay, like this can turn into something. And man, in the beginning, you're hustling. Like I was painting, I was picking up dead chickens at chicken houses in Delaware. I was doing everything that needed to be done to make sure that the lights stayed on and we were still in business. And then as we started to grow, I remember it was it was myself, two inspectors, and an office person, and I was doing so much, Nate. I was like, into everything. I was the chief everything officer. It was the CEO, chief everything officer.
Yeah.
Answering phones, helping with marketing, doing inspections, doing training. And I had this moment where like I was on the way home and one of our referral partners, a real estate agent, called me. He was like, "Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the inspection." She had a question, and like I completely missed writing this job down, and I just acted like I knew. I was like, "Oh yeah, here's the thing." And I turned around and went to the inspection. I was like, "Okay, we need to like level up some of our processes here because me handwriting stuff down, driving, answering the phone, trying to eat something while in the middle of all this is not working." Um, but I remember we two things happened in our life that really changed was one, we joined and got into a coaching community into industry specific, and we started to see what was possible. There were companies in the room that were doing 10x what we were doing, and to us, we didn't even we that wasn't even in our brain, it wasn't even in our dreams that we could get to that place. So I think we saw what was possible, and we were in the room with other people who had been there, and we could learn from them. And the other thing was Kristy, from the education background, she was like a vice principal level in the early education field, allowed me to take the risk of quitting my job. And her agreement was, yeah, I'll do this. And then when the business is at a place, like I want the option to be able to join. So she came on full time. And those two things combined really helped us catapult and go to the next level. So I'll let you share a little bit.
Yeah. So, Wes and I are high school sweethearts. Nate, you know that from long, long past. So we're celebrating 23 years of marriage. We have four young kids. Our kids were pretty little when we were in the middle of this and taking the risk, with the business. I wasn't sure because I'm in education how it would feel when I transitioned out, but I learned very quickly that we put too much emphasis on like the career per se and not so much on the vehicle, right? So I'm passionate about people, educating, training, developing. The vehicle in which I get to do that in can look very different. And sometimes I think we restrict what we can do because we're very like narrow minded in that lane. But so I was able to fulfill my calling and passion inside the home inspection vehicle, which is not traditional in the sense of educating and leading. But it's been a great journey. And Wes's number one was we had to have all of our student loans paid off. So once all my student loans were paid off, we were able to do that. Was able to come in full time and join him on that venture. So it's been a crazy road.
Yeah. And just give us a little context of where is the business at now?
Yeah, so it's been really exciting. So we started off in Delaware. Delaware is a small state, so we naturally kind of expanded into Maryland and Pennsylvania. We did two acquisitions in Pennsylvania, more in the Philadelphia area and then the Pocono area. And then during COVID, we experienced in our industry, I mean, a lot of industries got disrupted, obviously, during COVID. But for us, the real estate market in the Northeast just went insane, right? People were like, we'll give you our firstborn kid and we'll pay for your kids to go to college, like whatever it takes to buy this house. Well, one of the things they started doing was waiving home inspections. So they would say, hey, we won't get a home inspection done, take our offer. And so almost overnight, our business started to decline and we were like, what are we going to do? We've invested so much into such great people. The last thing you want to do is lose them. And so we made a pretty bold decision. We were like, where are they not doing this as much? And one of those states was Florida. And
Hmm.
so we decided to expand into Florida during one of our most like uncertain periods in business, definitely not our most financially secure. we made that decision and we expanded. We actually took one of our leaders and her husband in Delaware and relocated them to Jacksonville, and they launched there. And then we hired somebody in Central Florida, and Wes and I live there now. And then we grew that area. And so that's kind of how it has evolved over the last 15 years.
Wow, that's incredible. It's so it's inspiring, and it's often I think any leader listening can relate that when you first say yes to something, you really have no idea where it's going to go.
All right.
And sometimes what you thought was a small yes turned into like a life-defining, life-altering moment, and you don't even realize that till hindsight.
Yeah.
A common thread in the adults with IDD industry that is that a lot of people kind of fall into it, and then they fall in love with the people that are being served, and then they never look back. And I don't know if this is true across all industries. I haven't researched it per se, but so many even of the executives, of the chief executive officers or other people at that table that I talked to, they started out as frontline, like direct workforce, working with individuals with disabilities, and then they just loved, they loved the work, they loved the field, and then it kind of grew. So I hear kind of shades of that in what you're sharing as well. Of you didn't know when you started out where it was going to lead.
I think that's important as a leader, as anybody, right? Like a lot of times you don't know. I have 2 kids that are in college right now, and so they feel that pressure of like needing to figure it out. And I'm like, believe me, the chances of you doing in 20 years what you're thinking right now is very slim. Like focus on your strengths, your giftings.
Grow as a person.
You grow as a person and will work out, right? But a lot of times we don't know. We don't know, but we follow our passions and our giftings, and that often brings us somewhere, beautiful.
And going back to what Kristy said about the vehicle, like we often say to our team, like we're not passionate about home inspections per se. Like we want to serve people in what we do. We want to do it at a high level with excellence. We're not minimizing the service that we provide, but our passion came around like we want to create an awesome place to work where our team can come and they can grow as people. They can connect better with our clients. They can learn about communication. They can learn about personal growth. They can learn about leadership. And if they want to advance in their career, we want this to be a great place where they can do it. And inevitably, when some of the team members leave, like you're not going to keep 100% of your team. Like we hope that the paycheck they got from us was not the most valuable thing that they get to take with them. We hope that they leave a better person, a better spouse, a better parent, whatever the case may be. But that translated really quick, that we learned about ourselves, that as we started to grow and we interacted with more people, yes, people is the most complicated thing that we do. It's the most painful thing. It's the most joyful thing. But you also get this amazing opportunity to learn and to grow with people where you're learning about yourself, you're learning about them, and you're building something together. And it's not just a business, it's you're helping to build a better life for everybody involved inside your company. So that translates no matter what industry you're in. Like you can find a joy and passion inside anything when you're serving people. Because if you're exchanging money, if someone's paying for services or you're having value, they're paying you with what they've earned. There's an exchange of value there. I think Rabbi Daniel Lapin in his book says he calls money a certificate of appreciation. If someone is exchanging with you something that they worked hard for, and they're saying, "I'm finding your service valuable enough to pay you what I worked to earn," that's more than just money. That's a translation of appreciation happening. So that's a powerful way to think about it.
Yeah, I love what you just shared. I want to circle back to kind of what you were saying just a moment before, that your desires to make a great place to work. That is certainly a huge part of the work of IDD leader. That's a huge part of conversations I'm having. And what does that look like? I guess let me get even more specific about it. What's systematized about that, and especially what does it look like for someone that's, I don't know, they're on for you guys, the front lines, I'm assuming, is someone just doing a whole bunch of home inspections, right? Like it's a home inspector, that's your front lines worker. So that's a pretty, it's a very different job description than the front lines in the IDD. But either way, you're going to be basically incentivized to keep them as busy doing the revenue making activities than anything else.
Yeah.
I don't mean you personally. I mean just in general. That's what the business is going to thrive happening. So what do you have for systems or processes that take it from sort of that contractual exchange to something that people they wake up excited on Mondays?
Yeah, I think for us, it really started with our core values. So early on, we really spent a lot of time developing our core values. They're not just words on our wall. They are things that we live by. We give shout outs every week. Our interview questions are based on them. Our annual reflections are based on them. When we first started off, I remember we shared our core values and we're like, everybody's going to love them. And a few months later, we're like, all right, if anybody can name our core values, we'll give you, I don't know, $50. Nobody could name our core values, Nick. I was like, how do they not? We've been talking about them for months. How do they not know our core values? So then that year, we're like, okay, let's layer on. Where else can we talk about our core values? How else can we live them out? The next year comes around. I think they were able to name like 2 of them. I'm like, we're failing. This is horrible. So finally, it became such an embedded part of our culture. So part of that was even our benefits. So we thought about what were some low cost but creative ways where we can really incorporate who we are as a company in our benefits. So I'll give you an example of the one that gets the biggest wow when we go through hiring, which is so funny because it's like our least expensive benefit. But one of our benefits is we do a date night reimbursement. We talk about with our team that we want them to work hard and we want them to bring energy home. That's really important to us. So that's a way that we get to live that out as a company. And that's a way that once a month they can go on a date and they can submit. And we have a Google form where they submit a picture of them on the date and a receipt, and they can get that every month. And we get more wows about that than we do about the 401k match or the 4 weeks of vacation that we offer, which is also, right from the beginning, very, beneficial. And so that's just, another way that we incorporate that into that. We do wellness coaching. We do family photos once every 2 years that we can reimburse for that. So there's a lot of little things that we can do to really invest in our team that I think sometimes we think it's these really big things. Then the benefit for us is if they don't utilize it, it doesn't cost us anything, right? But for those that do, there's so much value. Plus you get to build a relationship, with that significant other, through that process. So I think that's been huge. And we have that systematized, and that starts even in the interviewing process, right? So a lot of times to get great people, you have to recruit really good people and have a really good funnel in your interview process to find those really great people. So we do have quite a bit of systems around our hiring because we've just learned, take our time there, find the right people, and that will cost you a lot less than hiring desperate or not having systems and making bad hires. And so our ads, our interview questions, our interview process, from your standard interview to we do a dinner interview is one of our last steps with their significant other. If they're married, is one of our last interview steps. Because once again, we spend hours with the people that we work with, right? We want to have their family on board, with them being with us. And so that's just another way. But lots of systems, lots of culture is where it starts.
Yeah. The vision, value, and culture are huge for us, and those are such buzzwords in the workplace today, and that get thrown around a lot. Culture to us is just how our team is behaving and treating each other and our clients today. The vision, do we have a future vision that people can get behind? And the core values are your values are the language of behavior, so that we want to attract and we want to keep. So we wanted to make our core values very, very behavioral in the language that we use. So our core values aren't integrity, teamwork, and world peace, because those are very words that get thrown around a lot. So one of our core values our team talks about a lot is start with wow, that products are consumed and services are experienced. So when our clients call us, we want them to have a certain experience. We want them to walk away like that person loves what they do. They enjoy their work. And if people come to work, Nate, and they feel like their boss cares about them, they feel like they have a good leader, they feel like they understand the vision, they feel like their work matters and it's playing a part into what their work is playing into the vision, and they feel like there's a bright future for them inside the company or outside the company, whichever way that goes. So they are clear on what they're doing. They're in the right place in the right seat. Their boss cares about them. They feel like they're seen, and they have a bright future set out for them. They're going to, by and large, really love working inside your company. And the core values, and I talked about earlier about making sure, like, how do we not make a bad hire again? How do we stop crazy from coming in? And when you make a right hire, it's like, how do we find them? How do we attract them? What did we say in the interview that let them know that it's a good fit? You want to make sure you're bringing people inside your organization that fit your core values. So you can't talk about that stuff enough. So I know I say this a lot to people that we coach inside of the home inspection space, but you need to become the CRO, the chief repeating officer. That you say your core values so much, you can say it in your sleep. And if your people can't do a good impression, oh, Wes is talking about the vision again. Wes is talking about the core values again. Like, you're not talking about enough. They should be able to do a really good impersonation, making fun of you, and you're okay with that because that actually means that you're translating the core values, the vision, the culture of the company, because you're just talking about it so much. And just when you're starting to get tired of saying it, they're just starting to get it. So, like, you have to be like so sick and tired of saying the same thing over and over again, but you got to keep doing it.
I'm curious, what do you guys? I'm enjoying our conversation very much. What do you look for in someone that was hired as a home inspector, front lines? What are you looking for when it's like there's going to be a new management position opening? Or like, what are the characteristics you're looking for? How do you know that this person has got good potential there?
Yeah. We used to think if someone raised their hand, then that was good. It's like, oh, someone raised their hand, they want to be a leader, let's plug them in. But we quickly learned that you can want something, but maybe not have the skill set yet, right? Or maybe you want it because your understanding of what a leader is somebody who has it easy and gets to tell people what to do. Like, we realize there's been a lot of toxic work environments, and we realize that our team is coming from a wide variety of experiences when it comes to leadership.
Some of them have some real work trauma.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I still hear stories. I almost forget because we've been in our own little bubble that I'm like, gosh, those places still exist. But so what we started doing, Nate, is we created an internal leadership academy. And so what we said, even in the hiring process, we say anybody who wants to be in leadership in our company has to go through Leadership Academy. It's open to anybody. Anybody can go through it. Even if you're not currently in leadership or you're not interested, you can still go through it. But if you want to be in leadership, you have to have gone through it as the first place we're going to look. And so in that, we talk about what is leadership. Like, what does that mean? It's not just a promotion, just doesn't mean more pay. It actually means more work and more responsibility, right? We're going to talk about what our heart and our culture of leadership is inside of our company. Then we're going to talk a lot about people, right? How do we manage people? What's the difference between managing and leading? We talk a lot about HR, right? Hiring, onboarding, working through difficulties, performance reviews, all of those types of things. And then for us, being a small business, we have a section on finance because a lot of times people think like, oh, all this money is going into the business. There must be all this money. And so we talk a lot about like, what is profit and what does profit go towards? And it's not like just all the revenue that's coming in. And so we have a little mini finance course in there as well. And so once they complete that and raise their hand, now we know they have a good foundation. And so that's the pool that we pull from. And they know that right from the interviewing stage. And so what we'll find is people who are really interested in leadership, that's a really big motivator for them for coming on because they know that there's already a path. But they also know they're not going to be put in that position right away. The other thing that we do, and I'll let Wes chat, sorry, is we test a lot. I think too often we move people in positions and we give them promotions before like they're ready.
Before they actually feel the weight.
Yeah, before they feel the weight. I feel like that's the biggest thing is that like you need team members to feel the weight of what it's like to be in a leadership position. So often when someone expresses a desire, I'll give them a little extra weight in that area. We'll test something for a few months before I ever put you in a formal role or position, because I want you to feel that weight and even see if it's weight you want to carry. I think that's important. Let them carry the weight before the promotion.
Yeah, we in our company we talk a lot about leadership is a responsibility. It's not a reward. And so many people look at a promotion as a reward itself. But we found in leadership, you go from like a lot of times we take our best performer and we put them in a leadership role. And that's kind of a step back from even what Kristy said. Before we asked who wants to be in leadership, we would be like, hey, you're really good at your job. Like, you probably should be a leader. Let's go ahead. What do you think about that? And most of the time, you're the boss, you're the owner asking them, what do you think about that? They'd be like, oh, sure. Like, I'll do it. I'll give it a try, even though they may not want it. Because your best performer may not be the best leader or even a good leader. They just merely really may love their job, and you want to avoid the Peter principle. Have you heard of the Peter principle before, Nate? Is that
Well, just play it out. It's not something I've
okay?
talked about on the
Yeah.
podcast. So
The Peter principle is when you promote somebody past their level of competency. So and you want to avoid that. You could have a rock star performer and you promote them, and now they like hate their job, hate their life, and they're leaving. So you want to make sure, like as Kristy said, give them some of the responsibility, give them some of the weight. Make sure they are willing and they don't feel like you're forcing them. So you want to identify people that are there. If they're taking Leadership Academy, that's showing interest. If they're buying into the core values, that's showing that they're in the right place. And then you can start to do some cross training. You can start seeing how they are interacting with other team members. And you want it to feel natural. If you like promote somebody and it feels like, oh, I never thought that person was even going to be promoted, like you probably didn't communicate, you probably didn't cascade, you probably didn't ramp that up the way you could. But really, a high performer who's used to being recognized, who's on a leaderboard, who's crushing the goals. Now they get promoted into a leadership role. Well, now like that translates. Now they're responsible for the team. So they're not getting the shout outs anymore. They have to be willing to take the blame and give the credit. And they're used to getting the credit and passing up the problems to somebody else. So now you're fielding and helping to, navigate those issues. And you're giving credit to everybody who's on the front lines, who's actually producing. And that can be a big shift for some people, and it's hard. That's I know for me, when I went from essentially acting as like what we would call the service director, where I was running the inspector meetings, I was fielding all the questions. When I replaced myself in that role, I had about like 3 months, Nate, where I was going through like an identity crisis of like, okay, like I had some meetings today. I thought about the future some, but that adrenaline rush of feeling like I put out 2 fires, I did 2 inspections, and I answered 5 questions today. Like I produced this revenue. Like it wasn't as uh, immediately fulfilling as knowing that I did XYZ. It's like I feel like I'm getting, and even though I knew I was doing the right things, and I talked to Kristy a lot during that time of like, am I doing the right things? I feel like I should be doing more, but I also feel like I'm making traction in some of the right areas. So we talk about that when we are promoting somebody. If they're going from a production level to a more leadership level, it's like, hey, you're gonna have a transition. Just be ready for it. You're going to feel a different weight. Like even when we do transition somebody well, like when you're actually in the seat and now people are coming to you for decisions, like that's a weight. It's different helping somebody in leadership than it is actually sitting in the seat. So all those things are conversations you want to have as a leader for them. You're not supporting them well if you're like, yeah, take the job, here's the paycheck, and peace out. Like they're going to hit a wall and have a lot to learn, and maybe they'll figure it out, or maybe they'll be like, no, not for me.
yeah, there's so many things to what you just said. I'm in conversations. I would say at this point, it's probably happening at least once a week with someone in a higher level leadership role where we're discussing that the gap between being a frontlines worker, again, this is in the industry that I'm in, with the gap between being a frontline worker and frontline supervisor, that you need every one of those skills of a good frontline worker to be the supervisor. But there's this whole other set that so often, especially in the industry I'm in, that very well may be true in the home inspection business as well. I just don't know enough about it. But in our industry, oh my goodness, it's almost like it's an afterthought if like that's on a good day. On a lot of days, it's not even an afterthought. And part of that is there's such a staffing crisis, like a nationwide kind of shortage of workforce.
Yeah.
And in our world, there's like a lot of regulatory stuff where we're trying to keep ratios, this many staff to this many people being served. And so people often get bumped up fast without a lot of training. And the other thing you said about being the high performer, that's usually what happens. I mean, that's not the exception. That's completely the norm.
Yeah.
Is that someone was really great with the people being served, so they get promoted. And then to me, that's like rolling the dice. And more often than not, and trying to hit a specific number with those dice, more often than not, people don't like that change because it's a completely different skill set. And then, yeah, that just what you said, where they end up kind of hating their job and resenting the things that they used to think they loved, and or they actually did love it. It's a completely different role with different responsibilities. So yeah, those are very real issues that we feel a lot in the IDD industry.
In particular, if your high performer stays in the lane of I have to solve all the problems, like they're going to hit a wall very fast, because now it's not just their problems they're trying to solve the whole team. So if they're not coached on, hey, you need to ask really good questions, like you need to make sure that you're helping your team like tackle I think it's in the 1 Minute Manager book, Ken Blanchard, he calls it the monkeys on the desk. But every time someone comes into your office and brings a problem, like they should leave with the monkey. Like, don't let them leave the problem on your desk, because then you're going to have an office full of monkeys and you're trying to manage it. So like helping your leaders know, like, this is what leadership looks like. And that's why our first class of Leadership Academy just talks about leadership defined. Like, this is what leadership looks like inside of our organization. This is how it works. And this is how we're like working with you to help train you to be a leader, so that you can support your team, that you can actually have a life and you don't hate your life. Like, you actually do leading well, because if you try to do it all, nobody can. And you're just going to, people are going to not like you as a leader. You're not going to like being a leader, and you're not going to like working here anymore. So how can we navigate that together? And when you are feeling burnout, like having a conversation with your direct supervisor and like changing it. So we're all going to have it. Like we're all fulfilling like a role. We're all serving people. It's not always going to be pretty. You can't do 100% what you love every day. There's going to be parts of your job you don't like. But if all of it sucks for you, like that's not going to be a good feeling. So navigating that is really challenging, but it's a lot better when you prepare them for it and they knew it was like, oh, this is what Wes was talking about. Like, and he told me to do this when this happens. Like, that just helps with that clarity.
Yeah, we'll talk about the learning W, where, whenever you start a new position or a new role, you tend to go in really optimistic. That's the top of the W, right? You're thinking, okay, I'm doing most of this job, or like, this isn't that hard. And so you go in very optimistic, and very quickly at some point, even if it's a job that you're very familiar with, you'll hit a point of overwhelm. And so when you let team members know, that also gives them permission to be vulnerable, right? Because we're already telling them, hey, this is going to happen. I know you're feeling really confident. We're really confident, but you're going to hit a point of overwhelm. And when you do, what are some things as your leader that I will notice or I will see, right? When you're under a lot of stress, how does that show up for you? And that can be really helpful, right? Because we all handle stress depending on how well you know this person or don't know this person. Because our goal is then to get them competency, right? So you get over the overwhelm, now you're competent, which is a great place to be. But if you're not careful, you can then slide back down the W and be more stagnant.
And complacent,
right? Where you're not really doing as much, you're getting a little lazy, you're not putting as much heart and energy into the work you do. And as a supervisor, we also have to be very aware of that, right? And knowing what that looks like in our team, so we can help them get out of that. Because I think that the key is we're going to all go through these phases. But as leaders, if we're aware of what those phases look like, we can help our team navigate through them and or get ahead of them, beforehand, or get them through it quicker. Because it's just we're human beings doing hard work. Right. And going through our own personal lives, like, goodness, as your companies grow and your teams grow, that was something else for Wes and I. It's like when we went from 3 team members to 50, there's a lot of life happening. there's a lot of deaths, a lot of births, a lot of marriages that might be struggling, or finance issues, or kid health, and they're showing up every day needing to perform at their very best, which is the other reason why for us on the culture part, we're like, we want to make sure that people's finances, their marriages, their health, in whatever way we can as a company support that, because they're going to show up better. I mean, goodness gracious, when we have all this stuff going on in our lives, like that's a lot. And so I think recognizing that and supporting our team through that is just huge.
No, that is huge. It absolutely is huge. And I love the W, by the way. I filed that one away. I was gonna say, I filed that one away. I don't know if you guys have trademarked it, but it could.
No, yeah,
it could show up somewhere. But
we learned it ourselves.
But it does. Having the Learning W conversation with someone about to go into a new role or into leadership helps so much, because you can reference back. Remember when we talked about overwhelm? Like, this is normal, because everyone goes in optimistic. We hear it. You probably hear it in your field. I'm sure every field has it, where someone comes in like, oh, I'm going to crush this role. Like, everyone's like, oh, home inspections is so easy. I used to build houses, and now it's like, yeah, but here's the challenges of home inspections. And every time they like hit a wall where they're like, okay, this isn't as easy as I thought. But when you say, remember when we talked about it? So going from optimistic to overwhelmed to competent to complacent, and then where we want to get is to significant, where you're actually not just worried about yourself or responsible for yourself, but you're helping invest in others. Like that's where we want to get. But with coaching, with systems, with mentorship, with leadership, like you can navigate through that W a lot better and get out of complacency and overwhelm much faster. With that support, and with the awareness itself is huge, but with the support and systems and coaching, it helps so much. It's a drastic difference.
Wow. Let's think for a moment again about that Learning W. How about that? From optimistic to overwhelmed, then to competent, then sometimes complacent, and then to significant. I love how with simple frameworks like that, it gives this language, shared language, that everyone on the team can use to admit where they actually are, how they're doing, how they're feeling, to process their own experience of it. And by asking those kinds of questions, you're helping them level up their own leadership and modeling good leadership yourself. Now, speaking of the Learning W, I always leave you with an action move. Here's the one for this episode. I want to invite you, ask one person that you've promoted or that you're about to promote where they'd place themselves on that W right now. And then just listen. Yeah, very, very valuable stuff will happen. Also, I have a free resource for you. Most supervisors in human services get promoted because they're the best DSP. And then they find out, wait, there's this other part of being a supervisor, which involves managing people. What? And that's where a lot of messy things happen. That's where sometimes there's conflict avoidance, all kinds of things. Anyhow, the resource is the 7 quiet danger signs that your supervisors are burning out their staff. Never by intention, never on purpose, but when they don't feel equipped with some of those people skills, it happens far too easily. So this resource is a downloadable PDF, totally free. It outlines those 7 danger signs, but it also gives you what's needed to reverse that or to make sure that doesn't continue happening at your organization. You can get it at iddleader.com/burnout. And one last thing would be to say that next week, or the next episode release, if you're listening to this after the fact, it's already been released. But part 2, we're going to talk about how do you scale beyond just one good leader and why no one on your team should ever be irreplaceable. And then they also provide a cool communication framework that protects culture as you grow. And again, it's going to be a blast. Can't wait to see you there. But until next time, here's to you. Keep up the amazing work.